Hello all, I hope you're doing well. This evening I would like to start talking to you about cranial nerve 10, the vagus. It has gotten a lot of attention in recent years in the healing communities, and I'm going to try and do its justice. I will, of course, be repeating some of the information you might know because I have to start with the basic layout of structure, pathway, function of this very important cranial nerve. But before I do that, I would like to read you a quote from a book titled Accessing the Healing Power of the Vagus Nerve by Stanley Rosenberg. And the quote comes from the foreword, and it's by Benjamin Shield, PhD. He says, "Our well-being is dependent on a functional and adaptive nervous system. At the heart of our adaptability, especially to stress, is the vagus nerve. This cranial nerve is integrated into our entire physical and neurological matrix. The vagus nerve is central to every aspect of our life. It can provide us with deep relaxation as well as offer immediate response to life and death situations. It can be both the cause and the resolution of countless disorders. Additionally, the vagus nerve can provide us with the needed deep personal connection to others and our environment." I'd like to start with just basic information. So, vagus cranial nerve 10 is also known as the wanderer because it wanders and innervates all our internal organs. There are parts of the body above the diaphragm and below the diaphragm, and I will be talking about the structures that are innervated in those areas. I will also wanted to share with you important connections that vagus nerve forms with other nerves, creating plexuses and other neural networks, as well as two sides of the vagus that are important to note, ventral and dorsal, that provide us with different functions. So the two sides of the vagus that I have just mentioned, the ventral and the dorsal, I want to tell you some information about that because a lot of confusion arises. What is innervated by the dorsal pathway and what is innervated by the ventral, and how they differ and or are alike. So the dorsal pathway and the ventral pathway actually arise from slightly different nuclei in the brainstem. And the dorsal aspect is unmyelinated. It's not covered with the myelin sheath. And myelin sheath actually increases what is called saltatory conduction, or the way the electrical impulse travels over the axon from one nerve cell to another. And this aspect of vagus, it is responsible for sympathetic or activated state of ANS, autonomic nervous system, but also it is responsible for a freeze or shutdown state, which is actually parasympathetic. So it's just very important to understand that dorsal does both sympathetic and parasympathetic functions. And ventral or front of the nerve is myelinated, and it is responsible for parasympathetic rest and digest, social engagement, connection, a state of autonomic nervous system. And the ventral branch innervates the structures of the face, neck, heart, and viscera, and makes us be able to switch between activated and rest and digest states. So here I want to say that it has been claimed to be involved in our sociality, as I have said, and making us more advanced, evolved species, according to polyvagal theory developed by Dr. Stephen Porges. There is a debate going on in the healing community, including but not limited to the field of psychology, related to validity of what is proposed by polyvagal theory. I will be making videos where I would talk about polyvagal theory and actually provide you perhaps with some additional information to make you evaluate it and understand what has actually been claimed and how it is now interpreted. But that is the subject of other videos. Right now I want to come back to the branches of the vagus and name the ones that I've written here. So there's recurrent laryngeal, superior laryngeal, superior cervical cardiac, auricular, pharyngeal, and pulmonary plexus. So these branches are formed when vagus joins with other nerves to form neural networks. To continue, I would now like to go over some of the connections and explain a bit more what happens when vagus joins other cranial nerves. The first one is the connection between vagus and trigeminal, and they actually interact in the brain and spinal cord. Both contain sensory and motor fibers and project to the same brain regions. Interaction between those nerves affects feelings of pain, fear, and anxiety. And so trigeminal, as you recall, is involved in chewing. It innervates our face as well as facial, which I'll talk about in a sec. So our expressivity, how we interact with other people and use muscles of our face, tells you that both these nerves play a big role in our sociality, because when we read, so to speak, other people's faces, it gives us information whether it is safe for us to be around them or not. Also, something like biting reflex, which occurs when we are stressed out and feel like we are in a state of danger, we tend to clench our teeth, and that is where two nerves interact and is displayed by this kind of behavior. So the next one is the facial, and along with oculomotor, they form parasympathetic nervous system outflow from the brainstem, meaning they are primary cranial nerves responsible for parasympathetic signals to various organs in the body, controlling functions like digestion, heart rate, and salivation. Also, the facial and vagus communicate with each other through auricular branch, and auricular branch supplies sensations to external ear, posterior part of auditory canal, and other structures of the ear, inner ear. So the connection is between your expressivity that is related to what you hear, the sounds, the speech, and it also gets interpreted whether environment is safe for us or not. So here you see three nerves interacting with each other in this manner. So the connection between vestibulocochlear and vagus is that sounds that are perceived from the environment entering the brain get interpreted, and then the autonomic nervous system is being modulated, and we'd see a response like low frequency sounds would be interpreted most likely as aggression of sort, while a prosodic tone of voice is soothing and actually is interpreted as though we are safe and our nervous system enters rest and digest states. The glossopharyngeal and the vagus and the facial, they all actually exit in an area called jugular foramen or opening. They share almost same root as they exit the brain, and they all originate in the medulla oblongata, share nuclei, and convey sensory information to trigeminal tract. Vagus also has connection with hypoglossal, a nerve connecting near inferior ganglion, and hypoglossal winds around vagus as it passes through the hypoglossal canal. Both control muscles in the neck and head. Vagus has sensory, motor, and parasympathetic, while hypoglossal is motor that controls the tongue muscles. So the last one I want to mention here is vagus and spinal accessory nerve. They're connected also in the jugular foramen, and part of accessory merges with vagus. I will talk more about spinal accessory in a following video where I would introduce what it does and its pathway and toning exercises. But spinal accessory, it controls trapezius, which I just elevated, as well as sternocleidomastoid. It connects the sternum, the mastoid process, and the clavicle, and you're able to perform these movements. However, it's not as simple as that. It actually affects the whole body posture over time. If you're residing in a state of arousal and are unable to relax, it can lead to some serious musculoskeletal issues. So moving on, I now would like to talk to you about functions. And as you might know, vagus nerve comprises 80% of ANS, or autonomic nervous system, and provides sympathetic and parasympathetic input to cervical, thoracic, abdominal, viscera, with sacral parasympathetic fibers innervating descending colon and sigmoid colon and rectum. So from this you could see that vagus innervates structures above the diaphragm and below the diaphragm. So now we'll be talking about functions: motor, sensory, sympathetic, parasympathetic. So the motor functions, they include stimulating muscles in the heart, larynx, pharynx, and soft palate. They also are responsible for involuntary contractions in the GI tract. When muscles in the larynx and pharynx are stimulated, you can use your vocal cords. They move and you produce sound and are capable of speaking and relating your messages to others. Also, you could swallow and have gag reflex, which is a protective reflex, all because of the motor function of vagus. Stimulating involuntary contractions in GI tract helps you move food along. It's part of digestion and elimination of waste, and without this we would also suffer greatly, and it can result in very serious consequences if we can't eliminate the waste products. So sensory functions. Up to 80% of sensory information about the state of internal organs travels from the PNS, the peripheral nervous system, to CNS, central nervous system. And so because of vagus, you can feel your skin, like it provides sensory skin sensations, and mainly it's behind the ear and along the neck, but it can also be on the outside of your upper extremities and let me show you, around the torso, where your ribs are about to end on each side, moving medially. Of course, you also have sensory fibers that innervate the throat and inside of the ear, different parts, the ear canal, and other ones that I've mentioned. Taste sensations. Taste sensations are also innervated together with other cranial nerves that I've mentioned by vagus, and they go to epiglottis and root of the tongue, which is controlled by hypoglossal nerve. Visceral sensations from different organs, not just motor. These include structures like larynx, esophagus, lungs, trachea, heart, and most of digestive tract. Sensory information also is gathered from internal surfaces of laryngopharynx and larynx. So we'll now discuss parasympathetic. Parasympathetic functions include all the organs that I've mentioned previously, especially sensory information is provided by the parasympathetic nervous system. It controls involuntary functions of the visceral organs, the heart, the GI tract, the lungs. Also, parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for our mood and helps control immune response and promote brain functions, as well as relaxation, helping our body return to the state of calmness after stressful event. Also, as I've just been discussing, it is responsible for helping us move the wastes out of the body, so it relaxes the muscles that control urination and defecation. And last but not least, the parasympathetic function includes a freeze state of ANS, the dorsal aspect, and I wanted to include it here because it's under a parasympathetic function. The sympathetic function mostly includes stress response, fight or flight portion, and you could see the diagram that I will provide for you in the post section on this channel. If you'd like to see what happens and what structures are affected, you might review some additional diagrams available on the web. So stress response signals central autonomic network, and then it modulates the SNS by affecting cardiovascular and endocrine systems. I guess this would be the end of the video today, and I will go into toning and or stimulating the vagus, which can help us feel more relaxed and reset after stressful response in a separate video. And I will also share with you what I choose out of known modalities to help me regulate my autonomic nervous system. From time to time, I'm feeling stressed and I want to recalibrate. So I use different kinds of techniques, and I will be sharing those with you in a separate video. Hope you found this information helpful. And as always, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you and have a good evening.